I want to welcome you to tonight. Tonight is one of my favorite shows because I get to talk to someone who has a great deal in common with me. I love the interview shows. I have the chance of being able to connect with people that have the same kind of interests I do, the same kind of insights, and sort of share philosophies and understand where they're coming from. And it's a chance for me to grow. I have the opportunity, happily, to come into contact with a plethora of wonderful people, and I get to read tons and tons of fabulous books. And I am just so overjoyed with that. I have had trouble often figuring out where could I fit in the reading, and now I have to do the reading for the show, and it's such a cool thing that the universe puts things in place so that I get the best of all possible worlds here. Tonight's guest is a really, really amazing gentleman, and I found in reading his book and in reading his bio that we have a great deal in common, which was, to me, fabulous and fascinating. We have tonight with us the author of an amazingly delightful book. It's called Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestials in the Holy Bible. And for those of you who know me, I am very much into the Bible UFO connection here. My husband, Patrick Cook, wrote a number of books on that, and he had a huge website out on the Internet for a very, very long time. So while I am not as well-versed, I have some background here in the subject, which is amazing because I have actually seen a UFO. So the book called to me, if you will, and I have to tell you, it is written in a very conversational tone and manner. His voice comes through beautifully, and it's the kind of book that you can glide through. You don't have to sit there and grind through it. It's wonderfully informative. He personalizes the story tremendously and makes it an enjoyable read and makes you want to read more. And actually, I understand he is just about to publish a second book. But let me tell you a little bit about Michael first before I bring him on the air. His name is Reverend Michael J. S. Carter, and he's originally from Baltimore, Maryland. He moved to New York City in about 1980 and lived there for 25 years, working as a professional actor before he moved to Asheville, North Carolina with his family. A beautiful place to live, by the way. He is an ordained interfaith minister and received his BA degree in college in letters from the College of New Rochelle, where he graduated from cum laude. That's where I went to school, too. He received his master's in divinity degree from Union Theological Seminary in New York City, class of 2000. While serving various Unitarian Universalist congregations in New York, Michael was trained as an anti-racism trainer and has been recognized by President Clinton for his efforts. Michael was also a weekly columnist for the Asheville Citizen-Times. He now serves as the minister for the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Shenandoah Valley in the beautiful mountains of western North Carolina. He's written articles on UFOs and religion for such publications as UFO Magazine, Alien Encounters, the MUFON UFO Journal, Contact Forum, the S.P.A.C.E newsletter, which is a support program for Abductees Contact Encounters, a UFO support group in New York City. He's also spoken at UFO conferences such as the Second Philadelphia Need to Know Conference, the annual Long Island UFO Conference with Budd Hopkins, as well as appearing on radio and TV across the nation. He's also appeared on Japanese television discussing the Bible and UFOs, and a longtime UFO experiencer. He lectures extensively on the topic of religion and UFOs, and he's appeared on the Sci-Fi channel Steven Spielberg's production of Abductees Diaries, The Real 4400, and is a frequent guest on the History Channel's production of Ancient Aliens. His book is amazing. It's delightful. I highly recommend it to everyone because it educates you in a way that is really most profound, and it also is enlightening. It's the kind of book that you learn from and you enjoy the experience. It's a wonderful read, and I highly encourage you to pick it up and take a look at it. It is in the Kindle edition, and as well as kind of softback, I guess. So, without further ado, I mean, if his bio had been much longer, we could have programmed into tomorrow, but without further ado, welcome onto the show, Michael. Hi.
Hi, Barbara. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and even more so that I mean, you've picked a topic to write on that is so near and dear to my heart. It's unbelievable.
Yes, and you come by it honestly with your husband had written about this. I have his book here.
Yeah, no, he was heavily into it. You can't live with somebody who writes books about Bible UFO experiences without picking up a thing or two here and there.
Exactly.
And it was interesting because he had never seen a UFO and I had. So together we had the full package.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know if this means anything to you. We have some thunderstorms in the area, so just be advised. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, we had some really bad ones earlier, and they're starting up again.
Okay, well, if you disappear, I'll just keep on talking.
Well, I'll come back.
Okay, I'm not too worried about that. This is your topic is one that happily is something that is now coming more and more into the public purview.
Yes.
I mean, for so long, it has been, a topic of, oh my God, no, not in the Bible, and it's so obviously all over the Bible that it's amazing.
Yes. I remember 15, 20 years ago, you couldn't even talk about this really without people either just poo-pooing it out of hand or just thinking you were a nut. But shows like Ancient Aliens, which is going into its 7th season, I just finished filming in July about 4 episodes for them. I mean, the reason they're so popular is because people realize now that, hey, we're not alone in the universe. We most likely never were. We're not getting the full story from our government. And a show like this, it's just common knowledge now. You can flip through cable channels and see tons of shows about UFOs or off-world intelligences, and they're taken seriously. So,
oh yeah,
it's really a great. Times change. Evolution can be slow, but it does happen.
Well, it happened fast because if you go back and look at the first season of Ancient Aliens, excuse me, they were evil. And suddenly there was a transformation in the whole program, and you got more and more and more positive until today. I mean, they're bringing on ministers and priests and rabbis and all sorts of religious figures that absolutely, are saying, of course, it's not only in the Bible, but it's in all of the, it's in the Gita. It's in, the Vimanas in the Gita are spaceships. And if you go into the Native Americans, they speak of the sky people all the time. So it's so much a part of our culture, and it's a rich part of our culture too. So that it's sort of it's sort of, I don't understand at all why it's taken so long for it to be so accepted, because I mean, when you look back in history, we have the pictographs in the caves. We have they're all over the place. In ancient Egypt, they're in the hieroglyphs. I mean, there's no place you can turn that doesn't have some sort of symbol or some sort of icon that says, they were here, So,
yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, because I was curious. I know that you've had a close encounter.
Yes. I've had several. I still have them to the present day.
And I'm wondering, is that what set you on this pathway? Because I know seeing the UFO land on my campus is really what triggered something in me, because I knew that we were not only not alone, but they were nothing to be afraid of. And so you want to share with us just a little bit about how this started for you?
Yeah. You hit it on the head. I mean, and that's what draws me into the topic, because the spiritual transformation that can occur. I'm not one of these people who thinks that all of them are here to sing Kumbaya with us and be our best friends. I used to think that way, but I realized that, just like human beings are more benevolent and benevolent, so are they. And so everyone who comes here is not here to be our best friend. But having said that, I was coming back, and I talk about it in the book, from seeing the pyramids at Chichen Itza and Tulum and on the Yucatan. I was in Mexico, and when I came back that evening is when I had that encounter. But that's what triggered me. And I'm not, I don't say I'm an abductee. I don't feel that I say I'm an experiencer, or even I use the old 50s term of contactee. But I understand people who don't feel that way. I certainly want to respect that perspective. But I'm not a very, how do you say, I have good friends. They're into the nuts and bolts, the more scientific. How do they fly? Do they use, back engineering? How, more technological stuff. I'm more interested in the transformation that occurs after the encounter. And some people may not have that. I know I did, and that's what drew me to John Mack's work. And I know Budd and I used to think, late Budd Hopkins, we used to talk about, he had a different worldview about them. I that they were here for some nefarious purpose, or at least there was a possibility. At that time, all my experiences have been kind of positive. Scary, yes, but I've grown. And so I kind of focus on that in my life. But yeah, coming back from 1989, coming back from Mexico, I saw that night, I got up in the middle of the night, and there was a being on the edge of my bed, man. I can chuckle now, but I was not chuckling then. And I got to tell you, and it was like this cobalt blue light that it, was there. And this being was chalk white, aluminum foil jumpsuit, very tight fitting, very short. Had I call them Ray-Ban eyes, but kind of those dark eyes. It looked like a stereotypical gray, but wasn't gray. Okay. And I, pulled the covers up over my head. I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest, and I pulled the covers up over my head and hoped it would go away. And when I did that, I heard this whoosh, whoosh, this whooshing sound, and it was very cold that evening. It was in December. And for a moment, I felt like I was outside. It felt like I was outside. And I pulled the covers down, and I was in my room. And it was just quiet, like nothing had ever happened. And that went on for about 6-8 months, maybe a little longer. Every full and new moon, they would come, and they would paralyze me. And they would, and I'd be wide awake. It wasn't a dream, and so they would show me pictures in my head. They would communicate with me that way. And only recently now, I see, back then I had met a couple reptilians who had come into my room at night. And just in the past, maybe, it's 2014, probably from the middle of 2013 up until now, I've started seeing more human-looking brothers and sisters that pop up, and they have like not hoodies, but like monks' robes that they wore back during maybe the 12th, 13th century, and so several different races I've interacted with, and I can just tell you it's been a journey.
I can imagine.
I can tell you that.
Yeah,
and, this summer has heavy contact this summer as well.
Now, when they do contact you, they're there. Do they?
Yeah, they just walk in my room. Sometimes they'll walk through the wall. Sometimes they'll just appear.
Yeah,
sometimes they're just there.
Do they talk to you, or do they?
Some of them have talked to me in my head. Their lips don't move, but I'll hear a voice. Some of them, like I said, have shown me pictures of things, of past life things that I've done, of things that I may do in the future. They've done that. They've helped me with the healing. I do a lot of hands-on healing work. I started out as a Reiki practitioner. Now I'm not sure what comes through my hands. I just know it's a very powerful energy, because every time they come, my energy is ramped up. I feel like I can jump out my window and fly. I mean, it's really ramped up. Or sometimes it may take me a day or two to adjust. Sometimes I can wake up if I go back to sleep very tired. It's almost like my circuits have blown, and then the next day I'm really kind of wired.
Yeah, I find that when I do this work, I'm off the ceiling after a while.
Yeah.
And it's and the radio show that I normally do, where we actually do communication and stuff like that, is midnight to 2 in the morning. And after working 2 hours in that kind of energy, you try and go to sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of let it catch up. I mean, I know my body will say, "Look, now it's time to stop." Eventually, but going back to your original query, it really got me into looking at the Bible. And as you said at the top of the show, yes, many cosmologies, many civilizations they talk about these contacts. And what got me going was I had met Barry Downing, Dr. Barry Downing. I also went to a psychiatrist because I thought I was losing my mind. My reality was really shattered. And I went to, and then Budd had regressed me at one point, and prior to him, the late Dr. Jean Mundy. She was the first person I went to. And I found her name in the back of a book called Encounters by Dr. Edith Fiore. And in the back it had a list of mental health professionals to contact if you felt that you were losing it, or you were having these experiences. And so I closed my eyes and I found her in New York, and she really helped me out a lot. But I found other writers, other thinkers. Dr. Barry Downing, who's a friend and colleague of mine. We have a different theology. He's a retired Presbyterian minister. Who else? Oh my God, Reverend Virginia Brasington, who's from this part of the country. She's passed on now. So we have a woman minister who was doing some interesting work into the topic. Morris K. Jessup, who died under mysterious circumstances back in the 50s, had also written a book about religion and UFOs. So there were people before me who blazed the trail. The difference is, well, there's subtle differences, but, I'm a man of color, and I'm also an experiencer. And they were clergy, but I remember Barry saying, he said, "Man, I don't even know if I would want that to happen to me." And, and I understand that. But, so I bring that to the table. I bring my own experiences as well as, my education. And so I combine the two and see where it leads. I'm open to other faith traditions. I certainly am not one of these people who thinks that there's only one way to commune or be with all that is. I can only speak on my own experiences, and I always let that be known. This is my experience. I'm not forcing it on anybody. I'm just telling you what's happened to me and my perspective on it. I could be wrong, and I'm very open to that.
Well, I don't think you're wrong. It's your experience. You're absolutely right at what you're saying about your experience. And it's not everyone's. I mean, when I saw the UFO, all I could think of was, whoa, we're not alone. I want to talk to them. And it was, and everyone that I have met that has had that kind of an experience, Lynn Katai, who did the documentary on the Phoenix Lights that happened in the 90s, she said the same thing, that there was no fear connected to the energy around them. And, I know that there are people that have been abducted that say that they've had, very bad experiences, and I certainly honor their experiences and what they say. It's just that I've never experienced it, nor do I need to. But, I found that it, for me, opened an amazing doorway. It said to me, look beyond religion. It said to me, these beings have been here forever. And I mean, you want to go back 2,000 years, you can do that. You can go back 4,000 years into Egypt. You can go back further than that in Mesopotamia. I mean, their presence has been on the planet, and it's been documented on the planet for a very, very long time. If they wanted to eat us, the planet would be bare. I mean, just there's no point to it. So what I'm curious about is when and how did you make the connection that the beings that sort of woke you up, so to speak, they literally woke you up on another level, spiritually speaking. How did you take that into the Bible, and how did you start to realize that there was so much in the Bible that spoke of UFOs?
Well, what had happened was I was raised Baptist, and I was getting away from that because it just didn't fit me anymore. I mean, I started reading and my own experiences and using my own knowledge, and I said, this God of the Bible doesn't really sound like someone that I want to be connected with. Some of the laws and the beliefs, they may have worked back then, but they weren't working for me at the time. And who was it? Kierkegaard, the Danish Christian theologian, said that life is lived forward, but it's understood backwards. And so looking back, I just said, maybe they had a hand. They helped me broaden my perspective. They helped me to open up to other perspectives. I mean, like I said, I was raised Baptist. There was a time I didn't believe in UFOs or anything like that. My God, I'm 57 years young. I've never seen a whole episode of Star Trek. I'm not a Star Wars person, so I don't have that kind of background behind me. But I couldn't get rid of the Bible. I mean, I've been an atheist, I've been a Buddhist, I've been agnostic, don't know and don't care. But because I'm a man and I'm born here in the West, or, I'm a Western man, I always went back to those teachings, especially the teachings of Jesus. And, of course, the 8th century prophets, their things about justice and what have you. So I would always go back, but I went back with different eyes. The scales were removed from my eyes. And so when I had this experience, and I kept having them and kept opening me up a little bit more, I started getting into metaphysics and, I read auras because I always saw auras since I was a kid, and I was into, all this other stuff. And it was a way for me to think outside the box, but I always kept coming back to the Bible. And as you said, then I started saying, okay, if I'm seeing them now, they had to be here for millennia.
Yeah.
And that's where I just started reading Egyptian literature and, of course, the Bible and the Sumerians and, other cultures, and they all talk about beings coming from the sky, and of course the Vimanas, as in the Hindu text, the Mahabharata and the Upanishads, and I started saying, okay, this is right here. And at that time, I was just growing, and I was into healing and to metaphysics. And again, I want to be clear that, I was opening my heart more and more to love, doing, high levels of spirituality, of course, and miracles and those types of things. And, I was just opened up to my own essence, if you will.
Uh-huh.
And realizing that everything in the Bible may not resonate with me, but I don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I started reading, and I said, okay, Yahweh sounds to me like an astronaut. He doesn't seem like a deity. He's got temper tantrums, problems, and he's overly concerned with eugenics and doesn't want race mixing, and all the men have to be circumcised. I said, this doesn't sound like a deity. This sounds like the captain of a ship or something. And I started exploring that, but I still didn't want to throw everything out. And we can go into some of the biblical verses, but I didn't want to throw everything out. But I had to come to grips with, my friends who are First Nations people. I mean, you read Joshua after Moses leaves, going into the land of milk and honey, and they killed men, women, and children and took that land. And they said, because Yahweh said this is ours. And it reminded me of what some Europeans did when they came here, and there were already people in the land. And God said we could have this. This is manifest destiny. So I tried to tie things up and draw some correlations to the time I'm living now. And that I was off and running, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, when they went into the land of milk and honey, they encountered giants, and they killed the giants to take over the land. I mean, who were offspring of other hybrid races, and so then I just said, this is not a God that I need to be pledge allegiance to, for lack of a better word. Uh-huh. But I did resonate with the 8th century prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Elijah, around issues of justice. What does justice look like? Then so we go through that, and we go through that, and we go through the dysfunction of that, and then we go through to the New Testament, if you will, the Second Testament, and then Jesus says, okay, I want you to bring your A game. Yes, you can love other Jews, but I'm asking you to love your neighbor, whoever they are. And so now we've taken the justice of the 8th century biblical prophets, and now we've taken it up a notch, because now we're talking about love. Not just loving other Jews, but loving the Gentile, loving the uncircumcised one, loving the Roman. And so it's almost in some ways that Jesus may be talking about another God. Well, yeah, and
or another race.
Didn't somebody question him at some point in time and say, there are 613 laws here, and he said to them, only remember love, and that's all you need to worry about. And it does feel like he at that point, I think maybe he said it a little bit prettier, but that's basically what he said, that love, to love one another as you love me, is really the only commandment. But then, then you get into that part of reincarnation, because he also says, did I not tell you? And in essence, he's saying he was the God of the Old Testament, and it's sort of like, was he the God of the Old Testament, and then he grew up and evolved, and now he's back here to right his wrongs?
I don't know that passage, any of that in the Bible. I don't know, and it's certainly a perspective. I'm thinking that Jesus was a messenger, and that he had as much God in him as we have in ourselves. But if you want to look at it from an ancient alien paradigm, if his mother is human and his father is not, then that makes him not fully human, which would account for some of the miracles that he performed. also, he says in the Gospel of John that my kingdom is not of this world. He says when he's in the trial before Pilate, and Pilate asks him in the book of John, when Jesus is not answering him, and Pilate at least seems a little frustrated, and he's saying, you're not going to talk to me? I have the power to have you released or have you crucified. And Jesus says, you'd have no power over me at all unless it was given you from above. And he says, don't you know, I could call my Father and 12 legions of angels would appear. And so I want to be clear. For me, Jesus is an example. He says, the kingdom of heaven is with you. I want to say, but that's not the only example. There's Buddhism. There's nature. There are other ways to go. I'm thinking that Jesus, if I take him at his word, and if we take the Bible, his stories about the clouds and the angels, and we replace it with ETs at Bethlehem when he's born, and they follow the star, I'm thinking that's a ship. And so Jesus' dad is not human, but his mother is.
Yeah.
And so there we have. But I don't know if he's an Old Testament God. I mean, maybe he is, but I don't feel it that way.
Well, I think too when you had the Exodus, it sounded to me like the Exodus was really a spaceship leading them into the wilderness, and it hovered over them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. What's important about that is the number of things. There is no Jewish religion until after the Exodus, and
right.
so this could be offensive to some people. I've heard some people say it is, but then Judaism, at least in the beginning, was started by off-world intelligences. Whether they did it or not is not the point. But Yahweh was having, he wanted his tribe of people. There were other astronauts vying for attention. That's why he says you shouldn't have any other gods before me, because there were other ETs in the area. And if Christianity is an offshoot of Judaism, so there's that through line there of extraterrestrial life. And of course, Gabriel, who comes to Miriam, we call her Mary, also came to Muhammad and told him to recite and gave him, as the story goes, the Quran. So we have the three monotheistic religions originating with contacts with off-world intelligences.
Well, you could even go back into, and I can't remember what, the Kachina dolls.
Yes, with the Hopi talking about the Kachinas and the stars.
Right,
and
the Hopis made those dolls so that their children in the image of the visitors, so that when their children saw the visitors, they wouldn't be frightened.
And you have the Cherokee who talk about coming from the Pleiades, and it goes on and on and on. And so that is where my research has taken me. In my first book, I did like probably a lot of what your husband did. I took certain incidents, certain events in the Bible, and tried to explain how they could be perceived, at least in 21st century eyes, as contacts. And I go through that, as you know. I talk about the Quran in there and Muhammad's experience. And in the new book, which hopefully will be out in a few weeks, I take it further. And in other words, I say, okay, now that we see, if you've walked this journey with me, that Yahweh is an astronaut. So we know that this is not the God, the supreme intelligence, the primal source. What do we do with that? And so I go from biblical times to our time, and how we can look at some of these stories without throwing away the Bible, or any other text, and how that will open us up spiritually. I talk about the Palladian spirituality. I have a chapter on atheism. I talk about Billy Meyer and his text, the Talmud of Jermanuel, which is allegedly is a Palladian document. And so I try to bring it up to speed. I talk about Jesus teaching reincarnation as opposed to resurrection. And then I talk about, okay, now that we got all this information, what do we do with it in order to grow our souls, in order to mature and become part of a universal citizenship, if you will, because we're not alone, and we're going to have to mature in order to be part of this galactic federation, if you will.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that is so confusing to people, I do a spiritual development circle, and I keep trying to explain to them that our perception of everything is definitely dictated by the environment and the life we have here on this planet. But that doesn't mean that that's the way it is everywhere. It means that it's only here. It's only indigenous here. And it's not that I don't believe in God or a creator, because I do. But it's not the same God, not the same guy that the Bible is talking about. He's
well said.
You know, he's on the same ladder, but he's not at the top of the ladder. So,
well said. That's excellent. And that's what I'm trying to say as well. And that's why I wrote that chapter on atheism, because a lot of people give atheists a bad name. And I appreciate them. I have some in my congregation, and so, because we have a little bit of everybody. And some of them are not even saying that there's no God. And if they believe that, that's okay. But what they're saying is what you said. I can't believe in the God that I was presented with as a child. I can't believe in a God who would kill all the firstborn Egyptians to prove a point. I can't believe in a God who would tell you to go in someone else's land, and not only tell you, but say it themselves, that I'm going to destroy men, women, and children. So, you know, and so, listen, I can't get into that either. But I wasn't taught that. You were saying before, why is it so hard for people to get it? Well, because when you've been taught something for so long, you know, sometimes it's more difficult to unlearn old stuff than to learn something new. As Jesus said, you don't put old wine in new wineskins. And so, it's hard. It's also easier.
Well, yeah,
it's easier to say, you know, what difference does it make? This is what works, and my mom believed in it, and my grandma, and, you know, it's easier.
Yeah, but it holds you back. It creates a prison for you if you aren't open enough to see beyond your horizon. And I know Patrick was always, I always had wild thoughts and strange ideas, and he was, into the Bible, and the Bible says this. And I said, okay, but where do we go from there? And, he said, that's for another generation. And I said, well, I think I may be part of it, because I really feel that we have to go beyond this, that the Bible is a wonderful book, but it's written by man. All right, inspired writings, but that means channeled in my verbiage. And there are people that are channeling today. Now I'm not sure I buy all of the channeled material out there, but a great deal of it has a Billy Meyer material, I believe, is channeled. And I think that when you channel, when you open yourself to inspired thought, to inspired philosophy, that part of your character, your philosophy has to, it's not a clean channel. It's, it picks up part of you as it comes through. And so when you look at channel material, you have to understand that it has come through another person's philosophy, intellect, and vocabulary, so that you may not be saying exactly what was totally meant, but you have the gist of it. And so people have to take it all with a grain of salt and understand that I know somebody, my son who is born again, said to me that when God was done with writing the Bible, that he said he wouldn't write anymore. And I said, wait, God didn't write the Bible. Men wrote the Bible. And he said, but it's complete now. there's no more. And I said, you're telling me that after 2,000 years there isn't a second edition? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You make me think of two things, and one of them is I try not to even get in those conversations anymore, because what happens is, at least in my humble opinion, what happens is it's not a dialogue anymore. It's who wants to be right. And I'm 57 years old, and I don't want to be right so much anymore. I just want to be at peace. And the second thing is that I don't, when people, for me, I have to learn, one of my lessons is I need to accept people where they are. And so if someone doesn't believe what I believe, or they have a different, that's fine by me. Because, again, what happens is it's no longer dialogue, at least in my experience. It's who's right. And, you never know where people are in this lifetime. And maybe that Christian path is where they have to be for this time around.
Oh, absolutely.
And so for me, I don't even indulge in that anymore, because it's a no-win thing. I'm not going to convince anybody. I remember Marianne Williamson, when I used to go to her lectures in New York. She used to say, if you have a message, a genuine message, there's always going to be someone who genuinely needs to hear it. And at least for me, again, this is for me, same thing with some politics. I mean, I may say A and they may say B, and I may say C and they may say D, but after that, because, then at least for me, it's I'm trying to be right. And if people believe that the final, that there's no more revelation outside the Bible, I just say, okay, if that's working for you, then that's fine. That's really fine, because it doesn't matter what you believe. It matters how you treat me.
Yeah,
and it just matters how you treat me. You can go to church Bible study every Wednesday night. You can be at the mosque tomorrow, Friday, and it's Sunday. It's Shabbos if you're Jewish. You could, Jehovah's Witness. You can do all of that. But I'll know what you believe by how you treat me, and vice versa.
Exactly. Oh yeah, and it's also walking your talk, which I truly believe is important. I think that for the most part, what I really try to do is to have people question and research, gee, that's interesting. Let me look at that and see just how I feel about it. And you're right. Everyone has
I'm with you. But if they don't do it, I'm kind of okay. It's okay.
Oh,
you don't have
yeah.
to.
Well,
because otherwise it's just a waste of energy.
Oh, well, actually I find that in putting together material for the circles and things like that I do, that the real joy and the real benefit to me is that I have learned. And, that was the main point of the whole exercise. And if what I share with people, they pick something up from, fantastic. If I have somebody to talk to about this stuff, even better. And what I love is it's all theory. It's not. This is theory. This is what I believe. This is just. I have no physical evidence for my philosophies. I only have my life, and I do what I do, and my life is rich in many ways because of it. Not in money, but I'm very rich in just about every other aspect. So that how I have taken what information I have and utilized it and shared with other people and respected the fact that, I totally respect the fact that my son and my daughter-in-law are not going to really understand what I do or how I do it, but they love me and I love them, so that's about all you really could expect from the whole thing.
Exactly. It's just, because otherwise it gets to be an exercise in futility.
Oh, absolutely. But, when I was reading your book and I was getting into, the UFOs in antiquity, and you really do a beautiful job with presenting, the different sources of information and the different places that, UFOs have been found and will continue to be found. I think one of the coolest ones that I loved was, of course, Enoch, because he
Yes.
I love the fact that he went up and God showed him around and he came back and his name was Metatron. Now, if that isn't a Transformer name, I don't know what is.
Yes. And Enoch is just, it really, he goes into great detail of of the story in Genesis 6:1-4 about the sons of God, who I call, ETs, mating with the daughters of men. And he goes into it in great detail, gives you the names of some of them, and they called him Enoch the scribe. And he, when you read the book of Enoch, it's clearly a story about, they're angels, but these are beings, flesh and blood beings that he's encountering, and I can see now why they took it out. Why it wasn't allowed in the canon, even though the Ethiopian church is a very sacred book. And they still do use it. I think in maybe more mystical areas of Judaism, the Book of Enoch is still revered. But and these books, the Book of Jubilees, which is in the Old Testament Apocrypha, and they talk about these. They're called the Watchers, and so we have it. And for me, it just opens up the Bible in such a different way. Now, what I try to do is, because there's just so much information. Some of it's misinformation, some of it's disinformation, some of it we just don't know. But again, for me, let's say everything we say is true. For me, the rubber hits the road by how I live my life. Because, that's when we look at the life of Jesus, we've had a religion about Jesus more so than about his teaching.
Yes.
And so, at least in my opinion. And so, I love it. I love all the speculation and the study and the analysis. But for me, when I leave here tomorrow to go to the church office, and how I interact with people, and how they interact with me, and lessons learned, for me, that's what I get off on, because for me, it's about the spiritual transformation. And the messages that I have gotten from the intelligences that I have spoken to is that one of the hardest things they've had to deal with is our fear of the other. And that these particular beings are not here to hurt us. They're here to take us to the next phase of evolution. And in a culture where we mistake information for knowledge and wisdom, we can get caught up in the paralysis of analysis.
Yes.
And so it's just a wonderful way of making the word become flesh, if I can use that phrase, because it's our beliefs, whether you're Muslim or Buddhist, our beliefs are people of the book, let's say it's the monotheistic religions. How do we live that out? Because otherwise, as you say, it's just theory. It's all up in our heads.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is, okay, let's say we find out about their propulsion systems, which our government knows. And let's say we got all this technological, because just because you have advanced technology doesn't mean you're a spiritual person.
True.
Just because you may be channeling a disembodied spirit or what have you, that doesn't mean they're more intelligent than you. That doesn't mean they're more loving than you. That just means that they're dead and they're coming through you. Or that just means they're from another planet or another dimension. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a lot of wisdom and such there. So one has to have their own discernment and one has to really nurture their own spiritual growth.
Right, and oftentimes people don't realize that every physical entity in the universe is on a pathway of evolution. Some further than others, some different than others,
yes.
But they're all evolving. And when you have an experience, when you are connecting with another life form, another spirit form, you don't know where they are, and you don't know where you are, because you may have chosen something this lifetime that is to pull lessons that are of a very different nature. So it is tough, but I think that the thing that happened in our society is because we saw something that was more powerful, stronger, and almost magical, that we didn't understand and couldn't explain, we worshipped it. And I think that in retrospect, that Jesus would have come in a different form had he realized, how we were going to sort of warp his teachings as a society, and that quite possibly, we didn't understand fire, so we worshipped it. We didn't understand thunder, so we worshipped it. If something is powerful or more powerful than we are, then we worship it instead of trying to understand it. And I think that's something our society has done to us, but it makes it very difficult because, it's just, they're just like us. They're just different. And that does sound strange, I know, but they're evolving as we are, and they're interacting with us because certainly there must be something we can teach them, or they wouldn't bother. I don't think that they're coming down here just for kicks and giggles, and I don't think that we are their reality television. I truly believe that in some way there is a sharing of philosophy, a sharing of spiritual energy and understanding. And during World War II, in the Philippines, they put an airport someplace out there. Not sure where, but they did. They landed these big planes, and the indigenous people had never seen planes. And so the indigenous people were in awe, and they came in with all of their tractors and their trailers and everything else, and they built an airstrip, and they landed planes there, and they gave food and all sorts of gifts to the indigenous people, and they were in awe. And when the Army pulled out, and of course they went out with all of their materials and everything, the indigenous people started to build replicas of the airplanes to ask the gods back.
I actually have, they're called cargo cults, and I have a story about that in my new book, about the exact thing, about an example of some indigenous people in the South Pacific, and they actually started worshiping. And obviously we still do that now. Because but in our age, we're just wowed by technology. But technology is neither evil or good. It's neutral. It's the intentions behind it.
Right, it's energy.
And so it's what, can we use this technology to maybe feed people or to cure illnesses or whatever, or do we make drones out of it? I mean, it's what our intention is behind it. So, these are fascinating times. I believe that there are people who still think that. I remember when I first started doing this, there were clergy people who said, first there was a group who said there's no such thing as extraterrestrials, and now they'll say, well, there are, you're right, but they're evil. They're from the devil. They're fallen angels. So I've seen the evolution come of not believing at all to at least they're saying, okay, they do exist. But yeah, there are people who are saying that, and some of them were at one time. I used to be of the mind that it was all sweetness and light, and I like I said at the top of the show, I don't believe that now. But what I do know is that the people that I've come in contact with have been about trying to bring some type of evolution, spiritually, and transformation to us here, and obviously to me specifically.
How do you think that process, actually works? I mean, Obviously, you're very comfortable with talking about them, and you have a very comfortable understanding of them as another kind of us. But how do you, with this information, how do you help others understand it, to evolve and understand it and embrace it, so that they can move ahead too?
What I try to do is be an example of it, but more specifically, and this has been coming from ages and average sages and the sages of the ages and prophets and avatars. That one of the things is that this belief in separation is crucial to understanding that we're all one.
Right.
And that there is a law of one. And so what I've done with my anti-racism work, with my diversity work, is try to bridge that yes, you may be Tea Party, you may like Obama, you may be gay, you may be straight, you may be lesbian, you don't even know here, you don't care, you may be Democrat, Republican. That's, I call it biography versus ideology. I don't want to know your ideology, okay? I know that. If you tell me you're a Tea Party person, then okay, I know your ideology. But we can't stop there. Or we can, but I want to know your biography. How'd you get there? And so even though we may not have the same political perspective, we can share some things because of our own humanity. And then we can start a dialogue, if we so choose. You may not want to, and that's okay too. But that's a message that they've been giving, and they give to, whether you want to call them prophets, or that's what King talked about, or Mother Teresa or Gandhi, and that don't have to be grandiose examples. I mean, I know people every day, they try to live that message, that there is no separation. If I do something to you, I'm doing it to myself. And when I do something to this planet, whether it's fracking or whatever, eventually that's going to come back to me, because I'm part of all that is. And so that's how, for me, again, the word becomes flesh. Because, again, it's one thing to say I love or I want to love, but it's another thing to do it when you're being challenged.
Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Another thing to do it when things, and so, but you don't have to have an ET tell you that we're one. Some people haven't had experiences at all, and they know this, and they've caught on to this. And I think that that's one of the most crucial lessons that I have learned. I mean, because I have a different love, I have a different feeling about this planet that I didn't have until I didn't see it. Until I started having these experiences. Just how beautiful and precious this planet is.
Oh, absolutely. There's a wonderful...
And having a deeper appreciation of nature and seeing people differently. And so that's how that got me going, if you will.
Well, they clearly got you going. There's no doubt about it. I think that the law of one is probably something that very few people really know is out there. I've been sort of throwing out the fact that there are universal laws that guide us all and are constantly at work within our reality, whether or not we're practicing them or not. But the law of one is I guess the master law. It's the one that is the all-consuming law. It's the fact that we are one, not only amongst ourselves here on this planet, but with the cosmos and the Creator as well. So that we also have within us full knowledge of all time, if we so choose to dip into it and to embrace it and to let it flow into our consciousness. And so many today.
And it's different for many people. I mean, it's hard. Like if I'm in Ferguson 2 weeks ago, it's hard for me to think of the law of one. So it's how. What is that going to look like? How does that? Because part of being the law of one is justice. And so maybe for people in Bangladesh, it's at least for me, I'm all. What does that look like? I know Dr. Cornel West says that tenderness, love is tenderness when it's expressed in private. It's justice when it's expressed in public. And so, cool. and that's always, at least for me, what does that look like? It's one thing to say what's the world law of one. What would that look like? Well, it would look like we would treat each other differently. It would look like maybe we don't shoot unarmed people, no matter what. Maybe it looks like that if I have an Obama sign outside of my yard when he was running for president, someone doesn't drive around and take it up or move it. I mean, these are just examples. But it has to be, what does that look like? Because otherwise it just becomes some nice words. That's nice. We're all one, and this energy flows through us, and, you know, what have you. But it has to be, well, what would that look like to make the world a better place? What would it be, a redistribution of wealth? I'm just throwing things out there, and because people have to see that. What does that look like? If I'm living impoverished and I'm unemployed, or I'm a single mom and I don't have health insurance, and to tell somebody, well, you know, it's just all about love, you know, that's hard to wrap your mind around, because you're trying just to survive.
Well, in those cases, you're not, you know, my theory is in those cases you don't speak it, you express it by what you do to share.
Well, I mean, that worked for you. Sometimes you can express it. I go back to Jesus talking to the poor. They were poor. They were under empire. And he told them that there's love. But he also, you know, did works as well. And so that's all I'm saying. You know, I don't know if there's a formula. Yes, you know when to say it and when not. But basically, you know, it's what does it look like? Because that's what people want to see. What is that? Because otherwise, it is just theory. And,
well, now
you know, and you want to go to practice.
Well, now after Jesus was crucified, didn't the disciples all get together and pool all of their belongings and all of their wealth, and didn't they live in a very communal atmosphere?
I don't know. I know some of them were sent away. It depends on what gospel you read. In Gospel of Matthew, they're supposed to go out 2 by 2 and take no bag, So I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying that things like that we don't really know, because each gospel has a different, and some of them have no story at all. But you know, who knows what they did? But we do know they moved on with the teachings. But the point is, at least in my mind, that no matter what they did back then, it's about how does that translate now.
Yeah,
for me, it's always about in the now, because right now we need to see it modeled.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to see it modeled. We need to see what that looks like. And, you know, I mean, these teachings are otherworldly, a lot of them. But they weren't always that way. I mean, if we go to, for instance, I'm looking at the Hebrew translation of the book of Ezekiel, and I never really saw this. And Ezekiel is talking to Yahweh or the Lord. Sometimes they're the same person and sometimes they're not, because they're used interchangeably. But the Lord is telling him to eat excrement. In chapter 4, and this is in the original Hebrew, translated, verse 12, the Lord is telling him, eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes. So, said the Lord, shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them. Then I said, I being Ezekiel, but Lord God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself, or was torn by beasts. From my youth until now, never has foul flesh entered my mouth. In other words, he's saying, I've kept kosher. And so the Lord says to him, okay, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that. Now, I can't get with that. I can't get with a God who would tell one of his prophets to eat cow's dung, and then the human excrement, and then when he says, but why? I mean, I've done everything you've asked. I mean, okay, you're right. Why don't you eat cow dung instead? Now, no one's going to preach that on Sunday.
No.
Some people would not, but there it is. There it is. If we look at Jeremiah, the Lord says to Jeremiah, I will smash them one against the other. Parents and children alike, declares the Lord. No pity, compassion, or mercy will stop me from destroying them. Now that is Jeremiah 13, verse 14. And so these are just some of the verses that led me away from looking at Yahweh the way he was. But then there are verses in Isaiah 40, verses 22. It says, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. So how did Isaiah know that the earth was a circle? Because I was told that no one knew that until after Columbus came. And then he says they're like grasshoppers, which means that he has a view from above,
right,
to look down. It's also interesting to note that, as you said earlier in the show, when Joshua and the rest of the Israelites go into the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey, when they send the spies out, the spies come back to Joshua and say, they're giants in the land, and we are to them like grasshoppers.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes. So, and then you have, you have, and I'm just skipping around. If we go into, let me skip around. If we go into Job chapter 9, verse 9, the Lord is saying to Job, he asks him, Job, who made the bear and Orion and the Pleiades and the chambers of the south wind? Who performs great deeds which cannot be fathomed and wondrous things without number? And you ask, how did Job know about the Pleiades?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and again, in verse chapter 38, verse 31, again, he asks Job, can you tie cords to the Pleiades? Can you undo the reins of Orion? So here we have knowledge of, at least mention of the star systems in the Bible. In the Bible.
Huh. And it wasn't until, I'm pretty sure it wasn't until much later that really the astrologers started to refer to them as, Orion's belt and everything. Yeah. I've often wondered about how far back the constellations actually went because, of course you have the pictures, the depictions of them in Rome and stuff like that, but it just seems strange that you're right, that they would know of those star systems unless, of course, that wisdom, that knowledge had been brought from out there to here.
Yeah. And as you talked about, the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night, that the Hebrews follow, and it feeds them, and it hovers above them. At night, it glows like fire, and during the day, they call it the cloud. We know present-day UFO sightings, sometimes they hide in clouds, sometimes they come out of clouds, sometimes they have the vapor that comes from behind them. And then, of course, if we jump several thousand years to even Jesus leaves. Jesus leaves on a cloud. He goes up in a cloud. And we talk about angels. Angels means what? Angel means messenger, right? It's from the Greek word angelos. And when we see, and I'm not saying, because I got on a radio show once and someone got very upset with me, I'm not saying there's no such thing as angels. But what I am saying is that the angels they talk about in the Bible, they don't have wings.
No, they don't.
It just means they could fly.
That's Renaissance.
Trying to say they could fly.
That's the Renaissance artists taking great liberty with stuff, I think.
Well, even the Egyptians and the Sumerians had beings with wings. But I just wanted to be clear with that because I remember someone telling me that you say there's no such thing as angels, and I've seen angels with wings, and I say, okay, we don't have to think alike to love alike. But in the Bible, there's no mention of them having wings. Some of them, when Abraham and Sarah feed the messengers at before Sodom and Gomorrah, they eat. You know, he made cakes for them and what have you, because that's the Jewish hospitality laws that were in effect. But they didn't have wings.
No, they were just dressed as strangers. You know, the crowd wanted to know them, certainly, but there was nothing. They were probably very fair, but aside from that, there was
we don't
nothing.
even know that. See, we don't even know that. We don't know how fair they were. We don't know that because people in that part of the world are dark.
True.
I mean, there was something there that Abraham and Sarah recognized them as messengers, but we don't know what their skin color was. I mean, we see all these pictures of Jesus being blonde, blue-eyed, but if he was to hide in Egypt with his parents when Herod was looking for him, you can't be blonde, blue-eyed hiding in Egypt. Egypt is in Africa.
Yeah.
He was a Palestinian Jew, which means he was a brown man.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I think that, again, the Renaissance artists took great liberties with everything. And yet in even some of those paintings, you have UFOs.
No question.
Which is phenomenal. And, you know, don't you find it almost, it's sad to me that our country is so reluctant to let us know about what information they have, what kind of material they have that they could help us with. When the Germans, after World War II, and they brought all the German scientists over here, Werner von Braun often said that a lot of their technology they had help from
we had
others.
Help. Yeah.
So if they were helping, and I don't believe that they were helping them build machines of war. I think that they took the technology and they crafted it for war. We took the technology and crafted it for war, and I think that's one of the saddest things going. That whenever there is something new and amazingly wonderful that will help humanity greatly, the first thing that the government wants to do is make it into a weapon, and it saddens me to see that because that's the first thing. How can we apply this? How can we use this? Distant viewing is something that is amazing, and yet the government took distant viewers and tried to have them spy for them, and happily and they still do actually, but it's not as reliable as they would like it to be. So they certainly aren't going to invest great amounts of money into it. So I think our culture has become sadly cold, and it is awful to think that it's been 2,000 years and we've had this message of love and we haven't done as much with it as we could have.
I don't think we have collectively, but the prolific writer James Baldwin used to say that the world turns by the love of a very few people. There are people out here, people like you, people like other people you know. They're out here. They're just not going to make Fox News. They're not going to make CNN. But there are people out here who are trying to live a life of integrity, trying to live a life of authenticity, trying to live a life filled with love as they understand it. There are people out here doing that. Because otherwise, why get up in the morning? You know what I mean? So every day is an adventure. And people are going to mirror back what we do, what we mirror out to them. So I have hope. And I know you're not saying you don't. You were just making a comment on the state of things.
No.
But there are a lot of people out here who are trying to make at least their part of the garden a better place.
Yeah, and I truly believe that. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I do. But
exactly.
It's sort of like, I believe that you set an example, and that even though you're not speaking words or preaching from a pulpit, your life is a living example of what you believe. And people draw from that experience. And it has to be done unconditionally, and it has to be done with integrity. And if you don't have those qualities, don't even apply to the club. Because you can go through the motions, but if inside you aren't living those things, it doesn't count.
But those are the people who challenge you to love them.
Yes.
That's the way I look at it.
This is true.
Those are the people. Because otherwise, I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. And we can be many things, and I love them. We're not perfect, but we're very open. But we can be self-congratulatory. We can be intolerant of intolerance. And to me, that's the ego's subtle way. It sounds good, but then we're just like the other people we're talking about. And that's where your spirituality comes in. It's easy to love people when they think like you do and dress like you do, and that's easy. It's easy to accept people then, but the challenge is to accept the people who don't.
Exactly.
And remember, and I'm not saying tolerate, because I don't even use that word. I'm saying you have to accept them. You don't have to like them necessarily. You don't. But to accept someone means you accept them. You don't try to change them to make them fit the way you think they should be. You don't try to convince them that you're right. I love what Neil Donald Walsh says in his book, Conversations with God. He said the new gospel is, mine is not a better way. It's simply a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so those people who get on your nerves, who are fundamentalistic Christians, and the Bible says what it means and mean what it says, and that's when you're challenged to accept them.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's an adventure.
Well, whoever it is, it could be Islam or whoever it is. That's when the challenge comes in.
Well, yeah, and certainly I speak from no soapbox, because that's too far to fall. But it's sort of like it's a great philosophy. Living it every day with integrity is often a lot more difficult than one would think. But every now and then, I find myself laughing at myself, because it's like, oh my, did I just judge that person?
Yes, I do it too. We all do it.
Step back, take a look.
But that's the growth, because the growth is you can laugh at yourself, not take yourself so seriously, and you're going to say, you know what, when this comes around again, I'm going to react differently. That's growth.
Oh, yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
about being perfect. It's not about not making any mistakes or not judging. It's saying, I judge this. It's getting in the way of how I want to live my life. It's getting in the way of how I say I want to live my life. That's where the growth is.
Yeah, and
see it.
To be honest, it's too much trouble to keep being judgmental and unforgiving, and it's just too much work. And there's so many other things to do with your time, your energy, and your focus. But I want to kind of drag us back to the extraterrestrials a little bit here, because I really feel that I don't believe exactly that they've made contact with governments, because I think if they made contact with governments, we definitely wouldn't have heard about them. But I feel that there is, I almost want to call it an underground type of movement, not a bad one, but just that people are being very, very subtle about the information that they're gathering and the information that they're bringing through from these brothers and sisters that are out there. I think that there's a subtlety to the message they bring this time. I think that Jesus came as a teacher, and I truly I believe he believed his message, and I believed in his miracles, the whole bit. But it was way ahead of its time, and so we killed him, because that's how you treat somebody that you don't understand. Now, I don't think that they'll send somebody like that again, but I think that we have a consciousness that can accept telepathy, that can accept, kind of subtleties into our consciousnesses that particular time of consciousness wasn't open to. And so that now people like you, people like me, people like, almost every person on Ancient Aliens, it's sort of like, think about this. Think about this possibility. Could this be? And that's the way that there will be a groundswell of acceptance. And at some point in time, I frankly think that I feel like the Earth is possibly in quarantine because we acted so badly last time, and the next time that they decide to have really contact with us out in the open so that everybody can see and hear, they're gonna pace themselves, because our culture, at least the U.S., our culture is unless it has a suit and tie and a corporate briefcase, most people aren't going to pay attention. If he came humbly, most people today would not pay attention.
Well, I have a little different take on it. I do think they've contacted our government. We have whistleblowers every day telling us that they've contacted this government. So I think there's a lot of data to support that. The other thing, though, is that in our right now, I side with Stephen Bassett. I think he's pressing for disclosure, but disclosure is happening every day, and we're waiting for Caesar, in this case Obama Caesar, who know it may be Clinton. We're waiting for them to come out on the White House lawn and to say, guess what, everybody, we're not alone. Now, that could happen if there's a sighting that can't be explained away or what have you. But disclosure is already happening. Roper polls will tell us that well over 50% of the American people believe that there's life on other planets and that our government is not telling us the whole truth about what's going on. And so in some ways, what I get frustrated with is that we're waiting for someone. It's like someone telling you, fire is hot because you've been burned by it. But you're waiting for someone else to say, you know what, man, that fire's hot. I say I'm way past, and I have some other colleagues who are, that we're still talking about if these folk exist. That's not even the question anymore. And this is what exopolitics is talking about. The point of departure is not whether they're here. The point is that they are here, and how are we going to work with this?
But don't in a way, though,
that's what it's about.
Aren't we a part of them already? Aren't in many ways, aren't we the ones we've been waiting for? I mean, in many ways that there has been so much intermingling here of blood that I really not blood. I mean through interbreeding, if you will, that all of us have a connection to them. That they are part of our DNA, and so that in many ways it's almost like waiting for them to come home or waiting for them to come and tell us where home is.
Well, see, the thing is, but there again, at least in my opinion, first of all, I think you're right. We don't need to say we're the ones we've been waiting for, but at least from what I get from the teachings, from them and from whether I'm reading sacred scriptures or just, we're still looking outside ourselves. Home is right here. Home is where you are. And so it's not so much that we're waiting for them, I think, for them to tell us or for us to tell them. They want us to get it that we are who we've been looking for, as you said. But we are so busy searching outside ourselves that we forget. And so once again, it's outside ourselves. This power is outside ourselves. And this is what Buddha was Jesus said, what you're looking for outside is already within you.
Exactly.
It's already within you. And you forget. And so you're part of a greater galactic family. But now not all, but some of them are saying we're waiting for you to wake up, to remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, then you'll remember who we are. And then you'll remember that there's no separateness here. But that takes a while. That takes a while, especially when you've had religions that have been telling you that just the opposite, that you've got to look outside yourself, and that if you don't see things my way, then so it's a lot of hurdles to jump.
Oh, it is.
And in some way, those hurdles, again, at least for me, those hurdles make me humble, and they make me realize that you're only as fast as your slowest person, and that I have to have compassion. If I've been gifted with certain gifts and certain knowledge and wisdom, I have to be humble with that. Or else I can get egotistical and grandiose and, come on, you don't get it? You don't see my way? Oh, come on. You're still thinking that? No, you got to come with me. You got to, don't you see? There's a higher consciousness. Don't you see? I mean, that's the same thing that more conservative people may be doing that gets on our nerves.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
So it reminds me that, you got to live. You've got to live your truth, but you've also got to have compassion. You've got to have forgiveness. You've got to have love, because it turns to hubris. And there are a lot of egos in the UFO community.
Well, a
lot of big egos
here too.
And we can all, no question. But I mean, in the UFO community, there's a lot of egos.
Well,
and and so it's again, you can have all this information, but if you're not translating that information into wisdom, and if that wisdom is not changed into compassion or whatever, then your information really isn't worth it.
True, and in many ways, that the ego is something that all of us have struggled with. I do believe. I mean, come on. It was not too long ago that we were the top of the evolutionary scale, and we were going to go out and look at what happened when we discovered America. That wasn't lost. We looked at the indigenous people and we said how crude, we'll have to give them Christianity when their spirituality was so far and above and beyond, actually, Christianity. And, we never took the time to understand that they had a spiritual essence about them that was profound, and that there was something we could have learned from them that might have helped us in our growth and development. And so instead we just crammed our belief system down their throats. And so, when we go out to the stars and everything, basically we're going to take our culture and our way of government and everything and try to impose it in other places, which is inappropriate.
And I think that's what they don't want. They're not going to let that happen.
Oh, no, I know. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. I mean, when we send...
I don't think they really want that to happen.
When we send armies to other countries to help them have a diplomatic government, when their culture has been one that is thousands of years older than ours, and their form of government has served them very well for a very long time, we have no right to do that. And I feel strongly that when everyone agrees and is in harmony with the fact that we are a family here, and that, good, bad, and indifferent, we're a family, and that we take care of each other. When we get to that point, then they'll open the door and let us play with the big boys, but not until then.
Because we're dangerous. We're dangerous.
We are we are contagion. Don't let this cancer out on the universe.
Yeah, it's really shoot first and ask questions later. And so when you meet people who are kind of like-minded, when you meet them, it's a joy, because it just gives you that kind of strength, at least I find, to just, I'm not alone out here. I know I'm not, but sometimes I may feel it, and then you meet someone and you connect and you discuss things, and so that's the blessing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and it's a matter of a level of consciousness, and it's so hard for some people to understand that level of consciousness doesn't mean I have more than you or less than you. It means that I'm open to a greater abundance of what's inside of me. It is not anything that is that you don't have. It's just that every now and then you get a peek in a door that other people haven't peeked in yet. That's all. And helping people to understand that it's all inside of them is very exciting. It's kind of like you have control. You can change yourself. You can change your life. You can change your world.
Yeah.
But the only place I've found that you can't BS your way through is when it comes to these aspects of saying to the universe, okay, I'm evolved, let me into the next level. Unless you are a living example of what you have become, you're not going anywhere. And it no matter what you say, if you aren't an example of that, your words will fall on deaf ears. And that I think is one of the coolest things that I have learned, that no matter how much I explain to the powers that be, the universal energies or whoever, that I'm pretty sure I'm ready to move on to the next level, you guys. You should open the door, because I'm just wasting time here. I hear laughter.
Yeah. Wow.
But this the extraterrestrials, and I don't even like alien feeling, that I don't like any of the words that anybody's come up with yet, because alien is of course not indigenous to the planet. It's not a bad word, it just sounds bad. And extraterrestrial just means it's not of the earth, but that's still a bad sounding word. I wish we could come up with a better word to call these parts of ourselves that are coming back to visit us, because those two terms almost have a negative connotation. It means, oh, be careful, and I don't feel that we need to be careful of them. In my experience, and it's just my experience, I can't speak for anybody else, but I have always felt a welcoming, I have always felt a welcome home feeling. I have always felt a comfortable feeling when I've talked about UFOs. When I saw one, I wasn't afraid. I was just excited that something inside of me clicked, something inside of me opened up, and I was flooded with all sorts of wonderful thoughts and ideas. And I do believe that they do touch a telepathic part of us. And I do believe that when you see a whole bunch of UFOs in certain areas, that in many ways there is a broadcast, a signal going out, and those that are ready receive it and start to question and start to search and start to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I do think
anything is possible.
Absolutely. I would love for you to for a short time here talk about your new book that's coming out a little bit again, so that they know
basically again. Well, it's called, the working title so far. It's called A New World If You Can Take It: God, Extraterrestrials, and Spiritual Evolution. Mm-hmm. The title I got from, there's a story about Colonel Corso, who wrote the book The Day After Roswell. and he was saying that he was walking in the desert around White Sands Missile Base, I think it's in New Mexico, and he saw a visitor, a star visitor, and he said he heard in his head this being say, look, give me 10 minutes. This really never happened. I'll get out of here. Mm-hmm. And Colonel Corso had the presence of mind, at least according to him, because he doesn't write this in his book, The Day After Roswell, which I have. But as he tells the story, he says to the being, what is 10 minutes? What are you offering? What do you have to offer? And he says, the being says to him, a new world, if you can take it. Mm-hmm. And it always stuck with me. So that's where I got the title for the book. And again, basically, I'm talking about now for people who are saying that Yahweh or the Lord, they may not always be the same thing, even though they're used interchangeably. We know as an astronaut. Mm-hmm. Do we give up on the concept of a God? And so that is where I go into, for instance, there's a chapter on Palladian spirituality. Mm-hmm. And according to the Palladians, what we call God, they call creation. Mm-hmm. And creation is not an anthropomorphic being. It's in their cosmology, there is an ET God who is the creator of certain races of human beings. Okay? But above this being is creation. And creation is the all that is. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go into the Talmud of Germanuel, which is a document that really has not gotten the attention it deserves. And it's the Gospel of Matthew. But allegedly it is the original Gospel of Matthew. But it's from the Palladian perspective. And it talks about Jesus being called Emmanuel, that his real name wasn't Jesus, mm-hmm. and that it goes into deeply their contacts with him as star beings. And they talk about his father was Gabriel, and his father was an ET. And it goes into the teachings that they taught him during the 40 days and 40 nights that he was away. And it talks about him talking more about reincarnation than about resurrection. But in it, we get a different, there's times when Jesus is afraid. And, with the Gospels, you never see him being afraid. They never hear, especially in the Gospel of John, it's almost like, I know I got to die and let's do this thing, and he's really gung-ho about this mission. But, he had human tendencies. Mm-hmm. Talks about him surviving the crucifixion, going to India, being married. You can see why it's a very controversial manuscript, but I think it's worth scholarly scrutinizing. Some of the teachings are very, very pertinent, and they make common sense. He talks about using your common sense. He talks about the spirit gets knowledge lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and then you go back to your source, mm-hmm. which is creation. And so it's really about that, and it's getting people to get past. Okay, we got to get past, if you choose to, this anthropomorphic deity who we've made in our own image, who's a Santa Claus. If you're naughty, you go to hell. If you're nice, you go to heaven. It's encouraging people to look at the teachings of Jesus / Emmanuel, who talks about all the answers are inside you, that we are part of a greater galactic community, and that in order for us to go to the next level, these are some of the teachings. And so it is definitely a new world if you can take it. That book will probably be out. I'm going to be speaking at the Edgar Cayce Institute the weekend of October 9th. Well, that's a Thursday. And a lot of the people from Ancient Aliens will be there. Eric Van Doniken will be there. It's called the Ancient Mysteries Conference. And so hopefully we want to have that book out by the time I go there.
Oh, gosh. Well, I've often said that we were not made in the image of God, that we make God in our image. So, and I think sometimes we stumble over that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's what the book's about.
And
people can get my book now. They can get my book now, Alien Scriptures, on Amazon. It's on Kindle. I think it's like $3.82. So it went down. It was like $4.99. You can get the paperback for $9, $10, I think. Last spring, it was #1 on Amazon's Kindle list for UFOs and Religion, which I was very proud of. And so you can get that now. The Ancient Alien series, the season I did, season 7, that should be airing sometime the end of the month into October. I did 4 shows for them. And again, hopefully this new book will be out by the first week in October.
I'm looking forward to that. Well,
I'll let you know when it comes out.
Yeah, your other book, I have to say it is a quick read, but I found myself going back and rereading parts of it because it's sort of, I kept saying, yeah, I can, it kept making sense to me, and on and on and on, and then it was, well, wait a minute, let me go back and read that again, and then there was a deeper meaning to it, so that if one just wants to have a quick read and get a good read, it's a good book. But if you want to really open up to some deeper understanding of what's going on, that's there too. You just have to go back and look for it. It's there. And I was really tremendously impressed because there are subtleties here that your first time read isn't going to catch, but the second time read does. And we're not talking a 500-page book here. So
no, and I thank you for that. I mean, it's my publisher Brian Kennard was talking about people's attention spans not being as long as they used to be. No, and there may be some truth to that. But I try to make it affordable. So even if you bought 2 books, you could, for $20, you get 2 books. There are other, there are a lot of citations, so you can see where I'm coming from. So it's been researched, and you can also get some of the books yourself if you want to do just further study. But that was my goal. But I wanted to bring it more up to speed for this book. I talk about Catholic and Protestant thinkers since the Renaissance who speculated about life on other planets. As I told you, there's a thing on atheism, and there's a section on that, a section on Palladian spirituality. So I bring us up to the present day because, again, I want people to say, okay, there's so much information out there. Whether it's Stonehenge or did they build the pyramids or did they not, and I find all that stuff fascinating. But for me, whether they did or they didn't, the point is now that you know that your heritage is greater than you could ever dream of, and now that you know that we're not alone, how are you going to interact with your fellow human beings?
Right. And the understanding that until and unless you do, we'll be isolated. And so it really needs to be, it has to be our teaching that we we hand our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. It has to be a teaching and an understanding that the kinder you are, the greater potential for the human race. Because, frankly, we're just another species on a dot in the sky. And, we like to think that without us the universe will not continue, but the reality is, yeah, it will. And it is the survival of a species that you're talking about here. Not that we're going to be, we're not going to be wiped out by laser beams or anything like that. We'll probably do it to ourselves if it happens. But it's sort of like our race is a cool race. I kind of like it. And I'd like to know that in another 2 or 4 or 20 or 100,000 years, the human species is still a part of the galaxy of man or the galaxy of beings. And it's not, they may not all be men. But the cosmic family, I guess, is the better way to put it. So
and that way we'll know how to use technology to its fullest benefit, not just to destroy, not just to maim, but to use it for the benefit of us. Because what I do to you, I do to myself.
Mm-hmm. So many people don't get that. Now, so many people don't get that. So many people.
It's hard to get. It's a hard thing to get. I understand why they don't get it. Shit, excuse my language, I didn't get it. I did not get it. Because when you're taught fear and you're taught survival and you're taught that if you get something, there's not enough left for me. I mean, it's not hard to understand why. Mm-hmm. That's why I was talking about before the hour ago. Some people don't get it because they haven't seen it modeled. And again, if I'm in Ferguson, or if I'm in Ukraine, it's hard to get that. What does that look like? I've been kicked in my butt for so long that those are just words.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to get that. And so I get frustrated with people who may not, but I also know, again, that those people are there for me to learn to accept and to have compassion. Because there was a time when I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And it is a hard lesson to learn. It's a hard lesson to learn because you got to search out and see how it's modeled. Kids only learn, and I'm not, what a parent's job is to model. So you can say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, but if it's not modeled, they're not going to get it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then they're just words. And so many people don't understand that the words are just actions, but the intent is what really makes the difference.
It's hard to get, though.
Oh, sure it is. Sure it is.
Love my mother and father where my dad abused me. I'm not talking about me. Or my mother fondled me or whatever. It's hard to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe people need to get it, but we also have to be patient and realize that, I have a good life. And so I've heard stories about people, some of the things I can't even imagine them going through.
Yeah.
So when they hear, that, it's just all about love, that sounds like a fairy tale. That's why I always say, what would that look like? What would that love look like? And that also makes us think, too, that, what would it look like? What would that look like?
There is a beautiful, beautiful video out there. It's on YouTube, and it's called Home. And it shows the planet, and it shows the beauty of the planet and the majesty of the planet. And it is just, if you or any people listening have the time to go in and listen to that video, watch it. It is the most spectacular graphically. And it shows you the parts of the planet that are still pure. I mean, we haven't destroyed it all. We've screwed up, but we haven't destroyed it all. That this planet still could live and flourish, and if we take care of it, it'll take care of us. So that it is, we're not just looking at individuals here. We're looking at how we handle our environment and what was given to us.
Yeah, it's all intertwined. I mean, if I was in Gaza last 2 weeks ago, it'd be hard for me to be thinking that this is love and if we could just sing Kumbaya and blah, blah, blah. Again, what would it look like? It would look like justice.
Yeah.
It would look like maybe I have a place to live, or maybe, and I'm just using that because there's, people are getting killed on both sides. But I think if more people could see what does that really mean, what would that look like, then you probably get more people on board.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we got to get those examples out there somehow, some way. And once that happens, people will know that there's hope.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that are in the positions that you're talking about have lost their hope. And, that's something that can only be rebuilt piece by piece, a little at a time, but it can be rebuilt. There's nothing that can't be rebuilt if you take the time and the energy and have the compassion and the love to do it.
Yeah, and a lot of these ET races, a lot of these star visitors, call them what you will, not all I can say, but or seeing, and how do you carry out justice? How do you treat? Because if you can't even treat each other with dignity and respect, you're not going to treat the planet that way. And as I said, the more human-looking ones who I've been running into lately, their message to me in my head was, they said that the most difficult thing we've had to encounter when we visit here is this fear of the other and this violence. But we're not here to take over your planet. Now, I'm always careful. This is what they're saying because this is what this particular species is saying. This is what these beings are saying. They're not speaking for everybody, but they say, listen, we are here to help you go to the next stage of evolution. But that's what they're saying. There are people who may come here and want to exploit us for our resources, or there's a possibility. I remember when I read The Allies of Humanity. At first I didn't want to read it because I felt, this is not, but they I'm not saying I agree with everything in it, but there's some pearls of wisdom in there. But this is supposed to be channeled through other off-world intelligences, but at least the group that's talking to Mr. Summers, even they're saying everybody here is not here because they're bringing peace and light. Some people want to use your resources. Some people will pit you against one another. It's a beautiful planet you have. And it took me a while to let that sink in. But because otherwise there's no discernment. It's like, everybody's here to hold hands and, they all love us and we want to love them. And it's just not simply a realistic perspective on how the universe works.
Well, when you look at the diversity, here on this planet, then you would almost expect that diversity to be, magnified out in the rest of creation.
Right, but there are a lot of people. Stephen Greer's one of them. I think Dr. Michael Sala. They're both, Michael's exopolitician, but, they do have this perspective that every extraterrestrial intelligence that's visiting us, they're just all here to hug us. And that may not be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying it may not be true. And so you have to have a spirit of discernment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You wouldn't trust, you wouldn't just say that every human being's here is meaning to do us harm or not. But you just have to be open and you look, by their fruits, you will know them.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to close. I want to thank you so much. This has been such an amazing 2 hours. I so appreciate your coming and sharing all of your philosophies with us and enlightening
Oh,
us.
thank you. I mean, it was a pleasure, and when the book comes out, I'll have Mark call you, and we'll do it again, and we'll talk. I think you'll like the new book. I want to thank your listeners, and yeah, well, you and I had a lot in common. Interfaith ministers, we're both healers. Your husband was writing about this. Like I said, I have one of his books here, and so it was very synchronistic. And it was, I tell you, it was my pleasure. And please keep up the good work, because you are changing people's lives.
And so are you.
Well, we'll keep on doing it. I wish
Absolutely.
you much love. Yeah. And let me know when I can get the link. I want to share this tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I will definitely.
Yeah. I want to share it with people.
I will hook you up.
Okay.
I'll send it to Mark, and he will send it on to you, I guess.
Or you can send it to me. You have my email, right?
Oh, I do. I will happily do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
And yes, when the next book is out, yes, I gotta have it, because
definitely, probably the next 6 weeks or so, because we want to have it for the Edgar Casey thing. But have a great night. I know you got to get off the air, and take good care.
You too, and thanks so much again. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Many blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And, gosh, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I will, let's see, the next time I'm going to be on here is, Sunday night. I'll be on Chris's show. So look for me there. And hopefully you have as great an evening as I have, and then hope to continue. So good night, everybody.
Napa know-how. A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how. Napa know-how.